Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Giano Caldwell has this wild story proving that once and for all, the tolerant left is incredibly intolerant. But before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to our great sponsors over at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have the cure to Biden inflation and Harris economics, but more on that later. Now, let's dive in.
Tell me what happened.
Thank you for having me.
What happened?
Well, I got to tell you, Maria, I never thought I would make international news for being a Florida man kicked out of a restaurant over my conservative values, but that's exactly what happened. But what happened is some friends of mine, some people that I'm just getting to know that live in my building, invited me off to this Paradise Books and Breads. Never been there, never heard of it. I go in, they're immediately asking me questions. How do you like working over at Fox News? Are you a conservative? And I say, yes, I am. Actually, I have a book out called Taken for Granted, How Conservatism Can Win Back the Americans Liberalism Had Failed. Get the book. And we talked about my brother, how he was murdered in Chicago last year in June, last month or yesterday made 7 months since he's been murdered. And a number of other issues like my pro-life stance, about progressive DAs who are exacerbating the crime issue. And the owner comes over to the table and says, I've been listening to your conversation. You are not welcomed here. And I said, oh, wow, did I say something that triggered you? She said, no, we are not politically aligned. I don't feel comfortable. You have to leave. I own this place. Wow. So I stood up, walked off from the table, shell-shocked, completely shell-shocked, because I've never had that experience before. And I went online and tweeted immediately after, and it got 2.5 million views and went viral. So I am disturbed what I'm seeing from folks, and I think this is a microcosm of what we're seeing across the country.
Well, it is. How many people were you in the group? I mean, were you talking loudly? I mean, it was a total of 5 of us, including a woman. So, they've made things like, oh yeah, we didn't like what they said about women, and something about eugenics or something like that, and I'm telling them I'm pro-life. Like, what is it that made you feel uncomfortable? I imagine it did, because for some on the left, intolerance has become the norm, not the exception. So they want you to capitulate to all of their views, no matter what it is. But if you say, I believe in God, and I talked about my faith in God while I was there as well, if you say that I'm pro-life, then it's a problem. There's a target on your back. And let alone, don't let you be black and saying these things. You got to go, because you are now someone who's an enemy to your race. And that's how a lot of these liberal left-leaning people think. It is extraordinarily reprehensible. And I am thankful that since this is all taking place, that they've shut their doors down at least into next month. But I think there should be a real investigation into this, because this shouldn't happen to anyone. And I imagine if I didn't have the platform that I have, if I didn't work at Fox News, no one would know about it, no one would care, and they would get away with this. I imagine how many other restaurants across the country are doing this exact thing.
You know, I should be shocked by this. I was raised to believe in a world where we are not supposed to look at color, we're not supposed to look at your politics, we're supposed to judge you by character. That world is gone. That world is gone. Some of it I do blame on our online discourse, and I find that ironic because if you're watching this video, you're obviously on the internet. Or you could have downloaded it, but you would have downloaded it from the internet. So that's not the point. The point is, we passed legislation that basically says you have the right to assemble, you have the right to go into a shop, and you have the right not to be kicked out based on certain factors. However, that's a double-edged sword, because in this case, Giano Caldwell, who not only has an amazing voice of his own and has a great story to tell, he's good at doing it. And because he was good at doing it, because he was telling stories about his own lived experiences, because he's saying that it's not good that we don't have the right to life in this country, that it's not okay to kill your unborn children, and then saying that maybe the gun violence in Chicago isn't about the guns, it's about the culture and the economic factors and all these other things. Apparently, talking from a conservative viewpoint while black was so blasphemous to this shop owner that they kicked him out, not his friends that he was talking with, who were having a very intellectual conversation. Hey y'all, I'm not exactly looking at retirement anytime soon, but my parents are. And friends of my parents are. And I'm sure either you or someone you know is looking at retirement and wondering, what do I do? How do I help prepare for this in this economy with this terrible president and with a vice president who basically coup d'etat him and is now looking to run for president herself? How do you protect against this? Well, simple. You go over to my friends at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have something called the Retirement Package Plan. This plan backs your wealth with gold and silver accounts. And furthermore, you will have direct access to these accounts. So you're not at the whims of Wall Street. You're not at the whims of inflation. You are in command of your own destiny. As a bonus, qualified applicants can receive up to $10,000 in free silver, plus a couple of other little goodies that they're going to package up for you, and you're going to be able to protect your wealth and your retirement. So go over to this link in the description below at colonialmetalsgroup.com or call this number 800-203-0422 and see how they can help you prepare for retirement today by backing your account with gold and silver. Don't delay your retirement, folks. Protect the money that you earned with Colonial Metals Group. They're here to help. You had people who had never heard his story. They were living in his apartment, and they thought, you know what? You sound like an interesting person. Can I hear you talk more? And so they took him to a coffee shop, and then who did they kick out? All right, it wasn't a group of friends. All right, it wasn't these people that were trying to learn something, probably liberals, but interested liberals. Okay, I talk about the left a lot on this show. I talk about how the woke mind virus just warps people. In this case, you probably have some liberals who were very interested in his perspective. That's a good thing. These people should be congratulated. Never kick out someone for being curious. Never kick out someone for asking a question. It's usually the follow-up that matters. Because if they're asking a question to entrap you, yeah, of course, you shun that person, you kick them to the side. But in this case, you have a black conservative male in what is most likely a left-leaning coffee shop because the owner said, oh, we're not politically affiliated. Then who did you kick out and why? Why was it the black conservative you kicked out? You see, we see this in left-wing circles a lot. That if you dare deviate from the narrative, even if it's by 1 inch. For instance, I love bringing this up in conversation. The author of Harry Potter, okay, J.K. Rowling, she is not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. While on one hand she is a Christian, she's a British Christian, which means that you are pretty much just a few steps to the right of Stalin. And she realized that, hey, women deserve their own spaces, and trans women in sports who are actually just men cosplaying, that's not fair. That's not fair to the women in these spaces. J.K. Rowling got kicked out of polite society because she dared question part of the narrative. And so woe to the conservative who is breaking the narrative entirely. And that's what Caldwell does. His experiences, his viewpoints are so controversial in left-wing circles that he is not allowed anywhere, okay? That's the sad reality for black conservatives, and black men particularly, because black men are also starting to realize that Democrats really don't like them that much, okay? I can say that because I've worked alongside these people. I've grown up next to them, okay? My street, back in my hometown in Georgia, has a ton of black families. And there's a long-standing reason why they do that, because if you're moving into a new neighborhood in Georgia in the early 90s, you're still walking on eggshells for a bit. And when they realize that, oh, these people are actually inviting, they're just normal people, these are good people to live around, more black families came in. And we've had wonderful streets. These people are fantastic. And they've realized that they're white neighbors. Cool. Join the barbecue. Let's all have fun. That's what has been happening in conservative circles. As conservatives start realizing that, hey, we can live in a post-racial world. Cool, this is great. But left-wingers can't do that. A lot of them can't. Some, I assume, like the people that are sort of being talked about in this video, the friends that were asking Caldwell about his experiences, good for them. But the store owner was so livid that someone dared break her narrative that she wanted to kick that person out because other patrons might complain. That is the state of leftism in this country. We're slowly seeing it die off. We are slowly watching the pendulum swing back to normalcy, but we're not there yet. And stories like this will continue until Americans fully realize that leftism is just a horseshoe. And arguably, in my opinion, it's intellectually worse because they're supposed to know better and then they act the exact same way to which they've been reacting to for so long. That's just the sad reality of the left. And we will continue to see it until eventually, we realize that this is a grave mistake and we wipe it away from our institutions. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Political Brawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.